So I had a cycling crash this week. Quite a bad one. I'm obviously covered in moles.
Yeah, they are a little bit more offensive.
Oh my God. Maybe I might get a tattoo here.
Stop it. People used to call me JCB jaw. Because they like a strong
Hang on,
jaw.
what do you mean by a JCB? Like you're going to shovel things up? Morning, Ryan.
Morning. You got lipstick on your teeth.
Oh, thank you. It's good to get that fixed at the outset. How are you doing?
Not great.
You're in the trenches.
Oh, mate, I am.
You never get sick.
Never.
This is day 5.
Yep. Day 5, I've actually just been to the doctors and they were like, yeah, you do have a very bad viral infection, but I've got no meds for it. They were just like, it's probably going to take another week at least. And I'm like, I don't have a week.
How could they tell that you've got a viral infection? Is it in your, did they look at your throat, down your throat with one of those
They didn't do that, but they did like blood pressure, temperatures, sat test, checked my back because I've got like the weirdest sensations in my back. So yeah.
Damn.
It's not bacterial though, because they said they would have heard crackling and popping in my lungs if that was...
What, like Rice Krispies?
Yeah.
Snap, crackle, pop.
Yeah. But to be honest, actually, I didn't come away with that with any new information. I've just... She was like, yeah, you got it pretty rough.
And you just got to write it out.
Yeah.
This is so unfamiliar. You're never down.
I know.
I can vouch for the fact that this isn't actually man flu as well. Because last night you were like convulsing in bed.
Was I?
Every 20 minutes. I was actually quite scared for
It's
you.
the night sweats that are
But
the
it's
most unpleasant.
It's nice to know that you're a human.
It's not. It's not nice for me. I thought I was stronger than this.
I thought you were the Hulk or a robot.
But anyway, we don't have to make this about me and
Well,
my...
I feel amazing.
Great. Go. Lead the way.
I feel so good. I don't want to rub it in. I
No,
don't know
go.
what it is. I tell you what. Do you remember when we used to do a lot of those seminars for all of our turtle clients? And we would encourage everyone to read Atomic Habits, which actually I just looked up there because we've got
About 5 copies
about
of
5 copies on our bookshelf by James Clear. He really knew what was up when he spoke about habit stacking.
He did.
Just been doing these 5 simple things in the morning.
Take us through it.
It might not even be 5. I get up. I feel like I've got a really good routine now. So I get up. I'll tell you what, Leo's been sleeping in his own bed as well.
Yeah.
For the last month, I think. So he comes down. That's warm and cuddly and cute. And we have a nice moment together. He puts his bum in the air, goes nappy off because he's normally had an accident because he drinks too much water before he goes to bed. And then I'll take him up, get his clothes sorted. We'll come down. He'll sit on the sofa, have some milk, and I'll start doing my yoga. I'll have a tea. I do some journaling. I've got my little calendar, my affirmation flip deck, which is part of my head plan collection. I flip to a new affirmation. I do a little bit of writing, and I listen to yoga with Adrian.
You listen to it or you do it?
Well, no, I do it, but also then even after I've done it, I'll just have her on in the background because she's got such a lovely voice.
And you like her
And I kind of feel like
music.
I am her. So she'll go, good morning, everybody.
You're not her. I've seen how soft she is.
I'm Adrian, and this is Benji, and she'll stroke her dog. And when she does that, I have a little stroke of Coach and Toto, and I'm on my amazing pliability mat, and it just feels so good.
Good plug for pliability there.
And it's making a huge difference. And it's crazy because this journal, right, I always used to journal. I've been through so many phases with it. It really pulled me out of a dark time when I was really sick.
So journaling did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do it for ages. And then now just having that 1 page a day.
But do you like a blank page? Is that what you like?
No, it's guided, which is really nice.
So tell us what are the prompts on that, because that's quite interesting to
Well,
know.
I should get it out so I can remember because my memory's crap.
Oh, get it then.
Okay, so there are 3, I know that you have to write down 3 things that you're grateful for. The first question is, how are you feeling?
The first question is, or you start with 3.
No, you start with, how are you feeling?
Okay.
And there's nothing more affirming or uplifting than feeling good when you're prompted to ask that answer that question.
How much detail do you answer in?
So there's only 3 lines.
Oh, so not particularly long form.
Not that long, but there's an area at the back which is just open, so you can write whatever you want if you're feeling particularly creative or you want to have a mind dump. But I think that that's enough because it's just that small window in the morning when obviously we've got Leo, and before we take him to nursery, so I don't have buckets of time to be lying on the floor like I used to. Remember during lockdown, I'd light a candle, I'd turn all the lights off first thing in the morning, I think at like 5 a.m. And I'd lie there for half an hour and I would just see what came and popped into my head and I would just write and write and write. But no, this feels much more manageable. And then also there's a kind of a sliding scale of pieces at one end. What's the other end? Peace.
Do you want to get it?
Yeah. I've just nipped and got it so I can remember. So it's got peace at one end of this sliding scale and panic at the other end. And just being able to use that to see where I'm sat on that scale is really nice. And actually the last couple of days I've circled peace, maximum peace. It also asks you to write down 2 affirmations of the day. You could write 1, but there are 2 lines. And also it encourages you to write down an act of self-care and wellness. And I think this has been a bit of a game changer for me.
Right.
Because as you will know well, I tend to get into a cycle, an unhealthy cycle, where I feel like I have to torture myself with things like work, 24 hours a day. Like I feel like I have to be doing, and I think that's a PTSD problem.
No. That's just
it's a personality problem that's been amplified by trauma. And this is a really good reminder that actually you don't win a prize for torturing yourself.
This is great. Keep going.
It's okay to do nice things. It's okay to go out for a walk at lunch. It's okay to do a little bit of a stretch in the morning, to have a tea, to not be achieving something every waking minute of the day. Not just then relying on sleep to do all of your healing for you.
Well, this is transformational in your world.
And then the last point is it just lets it says today I let go of, and you can write down what you want to let go of. And at the end of the week, there's a sort of little check-in, a reflect and plan, and then you can kind of go back and look at the whole week and then make some changes. You look at your favorite moment. How did you show up for yourself? Look at how you can bring yourself more joy into the next week, and then you can leave yourself a message, something that you need to hear going into next week. I
never used to journal with such structure. I used to do it a little bit more free, but this sounds great.
It is, but do you remember we used to, I think when we were in a really dark time, and I remember speaking to my therapist and then my life coach about how we could reconnect as a couple when we really didn't talk. I remember having to rely on prompts to actually encourage us to have conversation. And isn't that weird? I remember actually having a conversation with my psychotherapist about how we didn't talk, and one of our goals was to just speak for 5 minutes a day. That was an actual goal. A goal for mine, like 3 years ago, 2 of my goals for life were spending 5 minutes with my son a day and speaking to you for 5 minutes. And I used to have to write down the things that I would speak to you about. And then obviously we started getting better. And then I do find that it can be helpful to, as a couple, to talk about things that you're grateful for. So often when we're lying in bed at night, when we can remember, we'll ask each other, or over dinner.
Yep.
And I noticed that you rarely say anything to do with me. Which I don't take personally, because I think it's kind of a given that you're grateful for me. I want to. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, but it always revolves around Leo, doesn't it? Obviously, I'm grateful for you. I'll start to include that more.
I think that would be nice. You know, I'm a wordsy person.
A wordsy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a little word.
I'm a big advocate for journaling, so I think this is great that you're doing this.
Can I buy you one of these?
Well, I'll buy one. Isn't this? Can I see it?
And also, what's lovely about this is there's a circle on the front, so you can. It's quite nice to sort of sensory exercise. You can run your finger along the inside of the circle if you're feeling overwhelmed. And
I'm feeling overwhelmed.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Okay, well, this is perfect for you. Oh, well, give it a rim job.
Well, that's not that sensory. You should have put a little...
no, because there's a pen in it, so it's not working properly. But isn't that lovely? And it's such a lovely, like, thick cover, so you can feel the fibres. It's actually made out of natural materials, so it's quite grounding.
What a nice thing to own. As in, like, for me, but also for you as your
having
creation.
ownership over it.
Yeah.
I know, I never really thought I'd get to a place where I can bring out products that really help other people. I should dig out. I know that I feel like you used to hide it, but you remember I had that journal, which was a similar material to that actually, but that big yellow one that I used to write in when I was really unwell.
That's when you were doing reams of pages. Would you like that back?
And the only thing I could write at the bottom of every page was what...
Can I ask you a question, actually?
What I was grateful for was I am alive. And I remember actually clearly times where I couldn't concentrate at all. I couldn't think beyond the pain. And all I could do was draw. But the only things that I could draw were the things that were directly in front of me. And I remember Binky coming to the house once. And she mentions this still to this day, that she was so scared because all she saw was just this shadow, this person that was drawing. I was drawing Koji and Toto, and then this sort of bassinet thing that Leo was sat in. And I'll keep that journal forever. Now we're talking about journals. Did you ever used to write in a journal when you were a young boy? Is that something that boys ever did?
No, not when I was young, no.
Because I think girls would always get notepads and things in their stockings, and I think it's very
diary. That was more
diary.
That was like a living. Document's the wrong word, but
I think that is journaling. That's sort of the early stages of journaling, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah.
And I've still got journals from when I went through breakups when I was probably about 14 or 15, and they're really like young, girly looking diaries. I've got one which is actually the same color as this. Wow. It's burgundy and it has like little fabric roses on it. And in it, I've scrawled.
Scrawled?
Such destructive words.
Oh, God.
Having gone through this, my first ever breakup.
Stop drawing on that.
I'm not drawing on it. The pen's not working.
Oh.
I reckon we should have a look at that one day.
What? No.
Or maybe you...
No.
Because it would be quite interesting to see...
No.
I think it's so cool. So... There are people I know that my dad probably, for example, has kept a diary every year for his entire life. Obviously, he's not writing reflectively about how he's feeling, but he's writing what he's doing.
Is he?
Well, he has an old-fashioned A4 big black leather diary, and I think he'll have all of the years. And he's obsessed with filing cabinets. So he's got all of that.
Yeah, but what does he do?
Down.
Like a yearly review?
No, he's not writing about his feelings. People keep them, don't they? But you rarely go back and have a look, unless you've got one of those ones. They do the five yearly ones where you write a line a day, and then you can compare what you were doing that same day with the year previously. Although the iPhone does a very good job now of reminding you exactly what you were doing this day a year ago now, which I can find quite triggering. So boys don't write. Young boys don't really write. They don't take stock of what's going on around them.
I didn't when I was a younger kid. None of my mates did. But that doesn't mean that boys don't. I got into journaling much, much later. Probably within the last, 5-6 years. But I love it. I still do it today. I haven't done it today, but I still do it as a daily practice. Lots of people I know, like Danny, for example, he is like so regimented with how he journals. It's great.
Well, does he do it in the morning or the evening?
First task in the morning, he handwrites versus electronic, which I think is also quite key.
It slows you down.
Yeah.
I mean, I can write.
It slows you down, but it's also, I think it's more cathartic and maybe more meaningful if it's coming from, it's a different experience, isn't it, versus this. I can't really articulate it very well.
No, I know what you mean. I think it does. I think it does just provide you with a bit more space and a bit more time because you can't write as quickly as you can type.
I suppose it's the same way if I was to send you a letter and one would be a printed version or a handwritten. The way you receive both things is very different. I think that actually the process of writing is also very different.
You're so right. If you typed me, and that's the shit. I love things like Moonpig, and I send everyone a card from Moonpig. But it is typed, and it's different because I'll do a big blocky font, and it's like to
I'm not a Moonpig
guy. Happy Mother's Day. Whereas a handwritten card is so much more meaningful. And I notice that even with brands that send out these gifting boxes, if something's typed out versus if it's handwritten, it's cool because you really get to see someone else's handwriting as well. It's like slightly signifies their personality.
100%.
And you've got lovely handwriting. I think men actually tend to have better handwriting.
I wouldn't go with that. I would say women tend to have nicer writing.
Okay, no. If we look at my brothers, I don't think my brother can do joined up writing.
No, it's a good job
he's 32.
Good job he's good in front of a camera, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Should we talk about something that happened this week? It's not actually that exciting. It's quite big for me. You mentioned eyesight before.
Oh, you're going to talk about your crash?
So I had a cycling crash this week. Quite a bad one. And it really shook me up. I think it's because now the weather's nicer. We've started cycling again. And I took a bicycle out just to nip round the corner a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't wear a helmet. And as I was cycling on my electric bike, we have electric bikes from Specialized, they're awesome. And I was going quite quickly, and I couldn't really nip around the corner or turn around the corner quickly enough. And I found myself actually feeling quite scared, and I've never been scared on the road before. And it's never even crossed my mind, the idea of falling off a bike. You hear all these horror stories, there's the whole thing of like cars and cyclists bashing heads and both thinking that they kind of rule the road. But it's always felt quite far removed from me. Anyway, we cycled to a really beautiful spot to work together from on a Friday, last Friday.
Yeah.
Where did we go? Clubhouse in Putney.
That's it, yeah. Which
is really nice. It's right down by the river. And we're kind of still trying to, because we don't do our Wednesday morning day date anymore because we're doing this. This is our day date. We try and do a bit of remote working together on a Friday. And this felt like a really nice plan. Get a change of scene. And then we cycled back and it was all going fine until you stopped really abruptly at a zebra crossing. Yeah. And I must have been looking to the side for a second, and I went straight into the back of you. And I came grounding to a halt, and I literally flew off my bike right into the pavement, right into a load of Boris bikes.
You landed on the curb.
I landed on the curb right in front of everybody on Parsons Green. And I don't know, it was really actually quite shocking. I slammed into my leg, into my thigh, and I also hit my head really badly. But luckily the peak on this helmet, because these helmets have peaks, our helmets, took all of the impact.
Saved your gnashes.
Yeah, it saved my whole face, I think.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
What I want to talk about is why sometimes people laugh when they see someone fall. Because I had a load of people that came running over to check whether I was okay, which is really embarrassing because obviously I'm Louise Thompson made in Chelsea. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just had to stumble over and find a block, just anything that I could rest on while I composed myself and kind of gathered my breath and my thoughts. I didn't know if I needed to go to hospital. And you were stood there just laughing at me.
Which I don't feel good about.
Why were you? Yeah, but you laughed the whole way home.
I know.
It was awful.
Yeah, but I did later apologise profusely for laughing. I think I found it funny because the way you collided into the back of my bike wasn't actually that sinister. It wasn't like a big shunt. And I remember approaching the zebra crossing, feeling this little bump, and I turned around and saw the whole thing unfold. You flying through the air, and then your leg slaps into the curb, and your head goes and rolls into the thing. So I saw the whole thing, and I think I found it funny because it was just this small flying squirrel hurtling through the air, almost quite delicately somehow. I for some reason it made me laugh.
There was nothing delicate about it. Even the man behind had to stop, and he was like, "Well, you're going to have a really bad."
If it was me that fell off, it would have been a lot more
brutal.
But it was a bad one. Yeah, I'm sorry for laughing. You took it well though. I mean, and you got back on the bike, so kudos.
I don't know what point I was trying to prove by getting straight back on the bike.
To get over the shock, isn't it?
I think it was, yes, it's definitely to get over the shock and to prove that I don't need to be scared of cycling on the road. But I also think I was slightly doing it to prove a point to you because you had laughed at me the whole way home. And I wanted to show you that I'm made of tough stuff.
Fair enough. Point proven.
But we've had this before, and it's an interesting dynamic that we have when I have hurt myself before and you've laughed, and then...
Yeah, so have you. I've hurt myself and then you've laughed.
And then you, though, get really defensive and you then think that I'm attacking you when I question why you're laughing at me and not giving me sympathy.
I don't know what you just said, but I can remember examples where you've laughed at me when I've hurt myself as well.
It actually makes me feel a bit better because I remember when Leo was young and once he sort of tripped down just a small flight of stairs and my immediate reaction was to laugh. And then I really panicked that there was something wrong with me and that it was tied up with the postnatal depression or the PTSD or that I didn't have feelings.
No.
Well, I worried because I didn't know why I was laughing when my son had fallen down the stairs. And then obviously after you get over that kind of initial like, hysterical laughter, weird shock phase, then you kind of go over and obviously reassure and comfort somebody. So maybe that was what was going on.
My older brother, he laughs every time he hurts himself. More so when he hurts himself. But if he like stubs his toe or whatever it is, I don't know. I've seen it. There's so many examples where I've seen it happen, but it's almost like a nervous reaction. It's like you don't quite know how to process the shock and pain, so you just end up giggling. He giggles a lot in those situations. So maybe I had a bit of that as well going on. Mm. If someone laughs at me getting hurt, I actually find it quite helpful because it's like, oh, maybe it's not that bad. I'll just shake it off. Keep laughing.
Maybe that's the tactic then.
Yeah.
Maybe you're doing it because you want me to not be scared.
Let's go with that.
If that is the case, then that's nice.
Well, how about you don't think of the worst scenario and think of the best scenario? That being the best one. I've never fallen off a bike, so I can't relate. And I've been cycling for years.
You're so annoying. One day, Ryan.
One day what?
I don't actually want you to fall off your bike. It's one of my biggest fears. I hate you even going on the motorbike.
Motorbike.
Anyway, so what I've realised with this whole cycling incident is that I actually think my eyesight has got really bad.
Here we go.
And I can't see very well because even when I'm watching the TV now, I can't see the text. I can't see the intro text. I can't read, basically. And I don't think it's safe for me to be on a bike, but also driving a car behind a wheel without my glasses. And my mum made a really interesting point the other day.
Last night?
Well, no, she actually told me this months ago, and I never really paid much attention to it. But she said, you're spending too much time looking down at your phone. You're going to lose your eyesight.
Correct.
And obviously you kind of just dismiss those kinds of comments from your parents. And I thought, don't worry, like I've got my eye checkups under control.
You don't, actually.
But I think, well, no, because I have had quite a few eye scans actually at the hospital.
Oh, sorry.
Because of my autoimmune stuff. And I've got a mole on my eye.
Well, that's...
I've got a mole on my left eye at the back.
That is...
Isn't that niche?
Is that even possible?
Well, obviously I worried that there was like a weird dot on my left eye and that it could be a tumour, but I've been told that it's just like a sunspot. But surely there's not a lot of sun hitting the back of my eye. It must be one of the ones.
Do you mean a freckle or something?
A freckle. Like yeah, a freckle.
Right, because I'm sort of like visualising like a raised, hairy, gross thing.
What, on my eyeball?
I had this conversation with someone recently. They were talking about flat moles, and I was like, "What's a flat mole?"
Okay, well, let's talk about
That's
moles
a freckle,
for a second,
isn't it?
Okay, first of all, the thing on my eye is a freckle, so it's just a discolor. It's a darker spot.
Right, well, that sounds pretty inoffensive. When you,
I'm obviously covered in moles.
Yeah, they are a little bit more offensive.
Oh my god, you can't say they're offensive.
Moles are not great.
Well, you know what's cute
mole?
though?
Is this a flat mole?
A
or
flat mole
freckle?
is just a mole that's not raised.
What's a freckle then?
Well, the freckle's just like a lighter mole that maybe comes out in the sun. And then a mole is probably one that's a bit more permanent, isn't it?
I'll be honest, I don't like
Darker
moles.
pigmentation.
I've had 2 removed and arguably looks worse now because of the scar, but...
Yeah, that was an error. Okay, so you're basically, if you don't like moles, I look like a mole. You often call me a mole and I'm covered in moles. So you're basically saying you don't like me.
Well, no. Your brother was the one that used to call you a naked mole rat, and I was like, oh, yeah, fair, she does. In the mornings.
Yes.
And then for the moles on the skin, you haven't got that. You've only got one there that I can recall.
I've got them everywhere, Ryan. I've probably got like 50 on each arm.
Flat moles. To me, that's not a mole, that's a freckle.
Okay, well, whatever. Either way, like I'm a cheater and I'm fine with it. I've come to love them.
I just think
it does mean I should get them checked though, and I need to wear Factor 50 every time I go in the sun. Leo, though, quite cutely, I've noticed, has got a couple that have appeared on his abdomen. And I want him to celebrate them.
Yes. You like them that much, you even put one on there.
Maybe I might get a tattoo here of a little. No, I actually do have one under there, a very faint freckle, and I just like to enhance it with my makeup. Okay. I used to have one on my bum that my parents got cut out of me when I was about 8 years old.
Cool, man. Have you got any birthmarks? I don't have any birthmarks.
I don't know. I think they're all kind of the same, aren't they?
No, they're not.
Okay.
Birthmarks are like big old brown stains or maps.
No, but I've got lots of scars now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a fair few scars.
There's a Japanese philosophy called kintsugi that you should check out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that to do with eyesight?
It's about really appreciating your scars and how it's part of your character and who you are, and you should celebrate them. It's a technique where if they break pottery or ceramics, they use a gold leaf to then patch it back together, and it turns out more beautiful than it was before. Kintsugi. More beautiful than you were before.
That's rather beautiful about the gold foil. The gold leaf. The gold foil.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It is beautiful, yeah. Once again, Japanese showing us the way. God damn it. This eyesight business, I had to fall off my bike to realise actually that I can't see anymore, and it's because I'm spending so much time looking at screens, and especially looking at screens really close to my face. So when I'm looking at my phone, that's probably 15 centimetres away? And she said that I need to start training my eyes. So I'm going to dedicate half an hour every day to training my eyes. I need to go from I'm making out that my mum's an optician. I need to go from short distance to this microphone to long distances. And she said that we can't even access a lot of long distances in cities because our houses aren't big enough and there's no vista out there in the garden. I'm just looking at a brick wall. So I need to stand in the park and I need to look into the open. And when I walk Leo to nursery in the morning, why do you look like you're so bored with what I'm saying? Oh, no, I'm just having a moment.
When I walk to nursery in the morning, I can't see people's faces. Like, I can't see anyone. I can't see anything. I can't see into a shop. I can't see people's expressions. So and it's why I can't even see you sat there, Ryan.
You can't see me?
I can't really see you. And so I'm constantly squinting, and you keep offending me by saying that I'm constantly squinting and I'm frowning all the time.
Well, I think that's more your stress levels. You sleep with a frown these days. That's how bad it is. Do you know what's funny?
You actually told me that I woke up. Oh, you were watching me while I fell asleep outside in the garden on the weekend.
Yes.
And I was sleeping with a frown. So now I really check myself. When I'm just relaxing, I check in with my face and I go, is my jaw relaxed? Is my forehead relaxed? Are my shoulders relaxed? Because everything's really hunched up. Is my posture relaxed? Because I have like permanent lockjaw to the point where I even chat GPT the other day, what causes lockjaw when you take cocaine? Because I wanted to know what hormone or like neurotransmitter it was that causes you to lock your jaw up. Because it must be one of them. Obviously, I'm not taking cocaine. That would be the last thing I would want to do, given that I have a fear of medication. But I know that people do get like a really stiff jaw that locks down when they take it. And so I thought there might be some kind of correlation with the stress hormones causing the jaw locks that I've been getting.
Oh.
Because if it is an imbalance in something, then maybe there's a solution to that. And it might be doing more movement or working less hard.
Well, I think it's just you need to continue this shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Fast lane, slow lane. Red state's blue state. Yeah, that's another way to describe it.
Is that taken from someone?
I'll give you an example. Imagine Johnny Wilkinson playing rugby.
Yeah.
In like the heat of the game, whether it's like running with the ball, tackling, whatever it is, you know rugby well enough to know what the majority of the game looks like. Mm-hmm. Red state is hypervigilance, like reading the game, physicality, impact, energy, blah, 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 like, let's go. When he then lines up to take a kick, when they kick the ball through the posts, you have to quiet all the noise, and you have to go through your checks and systems, and that's blue state. So shifting from red to blue state is something they use in sports. And
that's probably a bit like what Tony Robbins does before he gets onto stage. You've got to get into that blue state. And I suppose even for us getting into the zone before we do the podcast, I've noticed that I have to do certain rituals now to get, well, I don't have to, I'm trying to. So Tony Robbins will do like his funny dance or bounce on a trampoline before getting on a stage and presenting essentially to hundreds of thousands of people. So Johnny Wilkinson, before he does his kick in front of hundreds of thousands of people, arguably millions watching on telly. Gosh, how nerve-wracking. Yeah. What does he do?
Well, he's got a set process. He does the same thing every time.
And is it like tapping the ball in a certain place and then doing a little jig?
The way he taps his toes on the turf, the way he holds his hand. I mean, I'm using him as the example. He doesn't even play anymore, but there's plenty of examples of professional sports who have rehearsed, predetermined routines that they do every time.
Because routine...
But that routine shifts them into blue state.
Brings our brains
and then
comfort.
I love that kind of stuff.
Have you got any other examples of people that do funny things to get into the blue zone?
No, but when you...
Are you sure it's red and blue, not red and green?
Yeah, blue, yeah. I actually got it. I actually first came across it reading about the New Zealand rugby team, arguably the best. Currently South Africa are the best, but New Zealand are historically the best. They've got like I think it's a 12 or 13 point mantra, and one of their mantras is always keep a blue head. And actually, I don't know if this is boring for you guys, but New Zealand, in terms of the way they play rugby, they're so disciplined. They don't give away any penalties. So like if someone does something off the ball, which is foul play, New Zealand are so disciplined because they've always got a blue head. They don't get lost in the heat of it. They don't give away penalties, which ultimately leads to points, you know. So I got it from that originally.
You've got quite a blue head. We were speaking about this yesterday.
Why did that feel like you were taking a jab? You've got quite a blue head.
No, in a good way.
God, I sound like Pat Butcher.
You need to get a little bit more red and I need to get a little bit more blue. That's the thing. Okay, so say we're driving on the motorway. I'm in the fast lane. You're in the slow lane. And we both need to find a way to get into that middle lane.
Right.
Which I think is probably the most dangerous lane, actually. Oh, motorways. I overcame a fear on the weekend.
Well, you didn't, because you told me last night that you're never driving on one again.
Okay. So I don't know how I've developed a fear of driving on the motorway, but it's sort of just crept up on me. And I really don't want to be one of those women who's a passenger princess, because there was someone that I went to school with. And I remember vividly, their mother was too scared to drive on the motorway. So their father always had to drive. The mother would come with and be in the passenger seat, barking away at the kids. And
the driver, probably.
And probably the driver. And it left a bit of an imprint on me.
Well, I really don't want you to be a passenger princess, but I think you might be.
You get comfortable in a routine, don't you? If I know that you're going to be able to drive us out to the country, why would I ever offer to drive?
Because it might be a nice thing to do.
Well, no, I drive in the city a lot, and I love those little like maneuvers around cars. I'm very good at parking. I'm good at like city driving.
Good at scratching.
But I get very scared, and this is probably very reflective of my personality, being on a big open road where I'm going really quickly, but I have a lot of time to think. I don't know.
This is deep. You're going deep.
So basically, I think that I am someone that is constantly trying to solve a problem. And if there isn't a problem right in front of me, then I need to do a Sudoku. And if I don't have a Sudoku, then I will look for a problem, because I always need to be solving a problem. And when I'm on the motorway, there aren't any problems. That I can't do anything. There's nothing to distract me. It's just me and that road. And so then my brain goes, okay, but what if? And then I start to get fidgety and a bit twitchy. And I have to really breathe through the thought that something bad might happen. And then I can get myself into a calm state. And I can then cruise for a little bit. Stealing your playlist, because you decided to cycle to Surrey. So you had a nice solo cycle and I drove Leo. And then I found actually listening to music and your playlist helped.
Well, that's what most people do. They drive with music or podcasts like this one. Basically, you need to set up a little routine.
Well, I had a routine. Do you know
state.
what I had to do? I had to bribe myself. I took 5 chocolates. I knew it was going to take me an hour to get there. I took a handful of chocolates and I had to eat one every 10 minutes. That was my little ritual.
No.
And I listened.
You can't just have 5 or 6 chocolates every time to get you into a calmer
but
state.
it worked because I knew, like, okay, just get past the next 10 minutes and I get another chocolate. And then I would sort of count down. But some of those minutes go so slowly when you're in the car.
You know when I said that you could do the Marathon des Sables? I take it back. If you can't drive to Surrey without you having 6 chocolates to get you through it, fuck's sake.
I'm so impatient. It seems impossible to sit there for 60 minutes without having a break.
You're revealing a lot about your personality here. Are you even aware?
No, I know I am. And it's probably not great.
It's not great.
But at least I'm willing to be vulnerable. And then I can try and overcome these problems.
It's what your family's like, all of you. So it is what it is. It sort of feels like you're constantly trying to put stuff in front of the issue that might need attention. And judging by the smile, I've gone right to it.
But that's why it's important for people like me to set aside half an hour, 40 minutes in the morning to let the mind just kind of free flow.
Does the idea of sitting on a rocking chair on a deck looking over a field excite you or terrify you?
It terrifies me, but it also really excites me.
That can't be both.
No, it can. And you know how hungry I am now for this country escape, to the point where I'm considering going on my own on this Friday and spending 5 hours in the car in the hope that I might find somewhere that works for us.
Driving or passenger?
Well, I might have to do some work on the way there because I've got a call with Harry, so I might have to be a passenger. But I know I'm really craving actually that solitude and that emptiness because I know that I need it. Yesterday, I had a bit of a shift up in my routine. Normally on a Tuesday, I shoot all of my content, and we actually didn't, and it felt so good because I had a lot more space in the day just to be. And it was really good. And I actually even had like a lot of old memories actually kind of float through my head. Things that would have...
God, is your brain this active? Is there something wrong with mine?
That would have like really triggered me before, that I really like clung because I cling on to things a lot. Like things, I give things a lot of attention. So if a thought comes into my head, I really give it a moment. And I think, what do we have, over 30,000 thoughts a day? So all of those thoughts I'm really like analysing.
I think we make 35,000 decisions a day. Do you know that?
Do we?
Imagine that.
There's a lot going on.
35,000. I'm pretty sure I don't make that many decisions.
No, you don't, because you're blue.
I'm blue. I am blue. You see that chair out there by the fire pit?
Yes, I sat there on the weekend to try and make you proud.
But why not yesterday when I'm hanging out my ass because I'm unwell? You could have sat out there for a lunch, 15-minute, and you could have had your little moment. We have these options here in this house where you could do these practices and have solitude, but you don't do it. But you're doing it now, which is great. I hope it continues.
Yeah, because you actually tried to turn it into a negative the other morning when we had a bit of a tiff. You threatened me with it. What did you say?
I said, if you do yoga again, I'll kill you.
No. Yeah, you tried to turn it into a negative. I know how much you respect this kind of the stuff that I'm doing at the moment to work on myself and my well-being.
But it was a reflex because you're quite an all or nothing kind of person. And you've gone from doing not much because of reasons to doing it all for the last 3-4 weeks. And I'm just hoping, because I want you to be in this state all the time, I'm just hoping that you continue it. It wasn't meant to be a negative. It was meant to be more of a, whatever you're doing now, please make sure that it's realistic and manageable, because like the ideal situation is that you can continue to do it.
Well, for so long I wasn't doing things like yoga because I was scared.
Sure.
And it's taken me 3 years to be able to check in with my body and have a positive relationship with it because of the trauma.
Yeah, sure.
And it feels nice to be able to move and to feel sensations in my body and not be scared by them.
Sure.
You know what?
What?
I'm actually really grateful
to have me.
Shut up. Well, I'm grateful to have these moments where we do check in with each other. I know that I'm not going to call it a breakdown a couple of weeks ago. I had a
Wobble?
A wobble, yeah. Because I was feeling overwhelmed and I got upset. And sometimes I think it is really important to have somebody to be able to communicate that with. And I feel like I'm making really good progress off the back of that. Like, I feel like I'm actually making some little changes that are making me feel quite a lot better.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
And it's sort of funny that the podcast has almost facilitated that just through having these conversations. And I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people that are out there who are also feeling burnt out or overwhelmed, who hopefully will be able to feel less alone and maybe use this conversation as a bit of like a jumping off point for maybe like embarking on their own conversations with friends, family members, partners. I don't know. I just hope that people find some of this useful.
I think they will.
Because that was the intention when we set out to do this podcast. We really wanted to help people through having these honest conversations.
Yeah.
And even if it is just talking about like silly little things like writing in a journal in the morning, sometimes you actually have to be told to do that.
I think it would be really helpful for people.
And I'd love to dive into more of the stuff that you're working on next week, because I think we do have very different personalities. Is that funny? Yeah, I guess that's funny.
We do have very different personalities, yeah.
We have different personalities. We have different ways of coping with things.
But we touched on this last night on that sofa there, and we agreed that it's necessary to make this work.
Yeah, for both of us to be at different ends of the spectrum.
Because we are.
And then we come together, and then we can learn a lot from each other, though, and from our...
I had a wobble last night, but we can go into that next week.
Yeah, let's talk about that next week. Wobbles are normal, everybody.
Wobbles are normal.
Weekly
Flus
wobbles. Flu is not normal.
Is it not?
But everybody seems to be getting sicker.
When
and
I
sicker.
get sick, which is like once every 10 years, people are like, oh yeah, it's going round, it's getting everyone. Is it?
I didn't even get to talk to you about the fact that Sabrina Carpenter is doing these concerts and 12-year-old girls are going to them and leaving with T-shirts, bits of merch that say 69 on the back of them.
What's the relevance of 69 to Sabrina Carpenter?
Do you know what 69 is?
Yes, but why?
What is it?
What's the connection between what?
What is it? Other than my Deliveroo code?
It's dinner for two, to quote the Australian guy.
Wait, what Australian guy?
From the ACAST meeting.
Oh,
you remember?
Oh, it's dinner for two. So it's a sex position.
Yes, thank you for. You're such a kid. You're like, I want you to say the words on camera. But what's the relevance with Sabrina Carpenter in 69?
Well, because she's doing these shows and they're quite provocative, and she's sort of like just demonstrating sex positions on stage.
Is she?
And there are kids that obviously really look up to her because she's a great singer and all of that. And I don't know how I would feel about, we're quite lucky, you know, I think we're quite lucky that we've got a boy, because there are a lot of things that we don't have to deal with, but then there are a lot of things that we will have to deal with in terms of responsibility. Again, this is a conversation that we can actually touch on in more detail next week.
I'll tell you this much.
But
I wouldn't allow my child, boy or girl, to wear a 69 T-shirt.
No.
Unless it was like clearly an NFL shirt or something. But not a Sabrina Carpenter who, as you've just told me, is a bit provocative.
When I was a kid, I remember going to a Spice Girls concert, and that was about as provocative as it got. I had a big, oversized white T-shirt. It was a pajama T-shirt with a big blue box on it with a picture of the Spice Girls. Actually, it probably just had their logo, Spice World. No mini dresses on it, nothing. Innocence.
Can I tell you
That's
something
what I want for my family.
Can I tell you something about Spice Girls? You know Mel B?
Yeah.
I was watching Happy Town with Leo yesterday morning, which is a bang average cartoon. The female voice in that is Mel B.
She's Scary Spice, Mel B. I get confused because there are two Mels.
She's been on a journey, that girl.
Shall we read a listener submission? Also, guys, I haven't really mentioned this in a while, but we'd love for you to send in more of your he said, she saids. This is a really good example of one that we've got this week.
Do you want to maybe explain what the he said, she said is for new listeners?
So the podcast is called He Said, She Said, because we try and pull each other up on things that either one of us has said throughout the week. You or I, he or she.
Yeah.
It could be they or them. All pronouns welcome in this pod. But yes, you could write in a he said or a she said about something that somebody has said that you want us to unpick. Does that answer what were you?
No, that does.
What line of thinking were you?
Well, we can't assume that people listening to this have been here before, so it's good to remind them what it is.
Yeah, good. Okay. He said, "Wow, your legs are thicker than mine." Oof.
He said, "Wow, your legs are thicker than mine." Oof.
Yes. Oof. No,
Yes.
she didn't say the oof, but I'm saying oof because I've heard this kind of line before. My 10-year-old niece told me that her own father said these words, "Wow, your legs are thicker than mine, look." Her granddad defended the comment and said, "The way I hear this is that your father is surprised at how fast you are growing." I said...
Good from the granddad.
Yeah, great from the granddad. I said, "I hope that is how he meant it, and I also hope you don't feel worried about your legs." My niece replied, "I feel like I've got fat legs. It made me feel insecure." For context, I am a 31-year-old female. I'm a mother to a beautiful little girl, and I'm an auntie to 3 beautiful nieces. I really worry about how men are speaking to girls, women, and their own daughters. I found my dad's perspective interesting and worrying all at the same time. I don't think it is ever okay to comment on someone's appearance, particularly when it concerns 10-year-old girls. Louise, you mentioned a comment about your arms, which you said was said to you when you were younger, and how you have never forgotten it. I think we all have a story like yours, and we just need to be better. Wow. It's just something that I would know never, ever to say to a child or really to anybody, because I know how much people suffer with body image and body confidence. Maybe that's because I've been at an all-girls boarding school and I've seen people with eating disorders, so I know how it can affect people and ruin their lives. And it's kind of shocking to me that there are people still out there that are still alive that can let that kind of comments just roll off the tongue without thinking about the implications. Like, it's never really been okay in my mind for a man to talk about a woman's body, full stop, unless you're giving like a cute compliment. But even so, I don't think that we really need to compliment people on the way that the body looks.
You've got lived experience with this, so I want to hear what you think.
Well, yes. So I mentioned before on the podcast that I was at a friend's birthday party, and I think I was probably about 14, 15. And this guy, I won't say his name, but he said that I had really like big arms, and then he did try to flip it. Yes, so this does really relate to this. After I was a bit taken aback, and I clearly like really kind of retreated into my shell, he tried to flip it as they were really strong and really muscly. And then I never even saw that as being a good thing. And that's taken a lot of unconditioning from my side to kind of work through that trauma. But yes, for years, then I would never get my arms out. And that's not a nice way to live. I think luckily now kids are growing up with a lot more positive role models who do talk about this kind of thing.
Sorry, how old were you when that arm comment came your way?
Probably like 14 or 15.
Were you quite sporty at that time?
Yeah.
Were you known for being sporty?
I was quite sporty, yeah.
Okay. And you were at a school party with your school friends?
Yeah, it was outside of school though, because it was during the holidays, and so we were at a restaurant. I think we were at Pizza Express or something.
Well,
we were eating as well. So then I thought, oh gosh, I can't really eat. My arms are going to get bigger. Both of our fathers have made comments on people's appearance before, but then again, like I know that my dad likes a bit of meat on the bird. So
did you say bird?
Yeah, is that an expression?
I think meat on the bone.
Meat on the bone, meat on the bird. But also, like, he's into birds, so meat on a bird. And so then it's probably, I guess he would see it as a compliment, right? But I think that I would always shut down that kind of chat, because I know that it can really offend people. And you just never know how someone is going to take it. You know, even the thing of like when people compare heights and stuff, like people often say to kids, oh, you've grown so much, or you're so tall now. Maybe that's because I was really short. So I sit quite firmly at one end of the height spectrum. But I think that, and I never actually really minded if people calling me out for being really small, but I know that a lot of women don't love being called out for being really tall. And like, I imagine that even a 10-year-old doesn't really want to be called like tall or lanky or chunky or, I don't know.
I would say from a male's perspective, I think this is a helpful reminder that we should be way more sensitive around this. I don't think men set out to be rude for the most part, just to make that clear. But I do think that men should tread a lot more sensitively around it, because it's just not worth. And your example with the arms is a really good one, because that sat with you for many, many years, maybe still does to a certain extent. So it really should be taken a lot more seriously, yeah. And by the way, I think conversations like this, where we make it known that it's just one of those areas that men should really tread a little bit more carefully around, that's sometimes all it takes. That is helpful for me, knowing that I do have a 10-year-old niece who is going to be in that vulnerable stage. I will have to be a lot more aware of what I say to her moving forwards, because, you know, there is probably a part of me that would joke around. I don't know. It's not really a place to pass any comment unless it's really, really uplifting and positive. My brothers used to tell me I had a massive head as a kid, didn't they? And that chewed me up for a long time.
I think that you've got a lovely head that sits on you've got a big head, but you've got a big body and you're tall, so that's great. It'd be weird if you had a small head.
I used to have a very defined, like, people used to call me JCB jaw. But then I got fucking hired by Abercrombie, and I was like, well, this is paid in my favour, because they like a strong jaw.
What do you mean by a JCB? Like, you're going to shovel things up?
Yeah, because it was very, like, I was a lot
so
younger.
you're a scoop, basically.
Yeah.
Your chin is a scoop.
I remember hearing it, I was like, I don't know if that's cool, but...
You've never told me that.
No. Mate, if you want to go into my insecurities as a child, we should park it for another episode. There's a lot.
That's your... You're like, I can't believe I just shared that.
No, I don't mind. Mate, I'll show you all my skeletons.
Proud of you.
I'm sat here as a confident 34-year-old man now. I can talk about these things.
I just want to say, like, a huge thank you for sending this one in, because it's been really nice to talk about what's acceptable and what's not when it comes to young people's bodies. And hopefully people listening will now know not to comment on people's limbs and appearances, body parts. Ryan's off thinking about other things that he's been told.
No.
Or mistakes. Have you ever made a mistake then?
I'm thinking more about the whole body shaming thing, because I know that's prolific online. And I know that there are some real horror stories about young girls who get body shamed online, isn't there? So there is a culture that it really does exist to a bad level. So again, to my point, having conversations like this on a podcast, offering it as a reminder to men as well as women, but arguably men more so, needs to be taken a lot more seriously, because it can have lasting damage on young people. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found some of what we spoke about this week useful or entertaining. If you guys wanted to, then you could follow us on your preferred audio platform, whether that's podcasts, the podcast app on Apple, Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Click the subscribe button. It just means that you won't miss an episode. So I think you get like a little red dot, don't you? Pops up to the top when we bring out a new one on a Wednesday. Look at these winkle pickers as well. We could just keep chatting today. Am I wearing winkle pickers? This isn't a winkle... Oh my God, that would be an ick. Let's save that for a next week. I was just looking at how squished... That's not good for your feet to be. Look how wide that toe base is there. Better for your feet. Look at that. I don't get that. Let's talk about that next time. All right, guys. Love you. Love you. I'll see you next week when I'm over this man flu.